the most problematic of the signs of Judgment Day. And it has caused many of our youth to question, to doubt. I myself have met people that have actually left Islam because of these types of tales. And we have to be honest and frank and not pretend as if this doesn't exist. Perhaps some of you are not accustomed to hearing people speak like this, but my philosophy is different. We are dealing with the crisis of people leaving our faith, our own children, our own young men and women. And of the reasons why is that we are not answering some of these issues that they bring, and we dismiss them. And I myself have discussed many of these issues with these types of people, and one of them, not the only one, but one of them is Yajuj and Majuj. So we have to be very clear and frank and think critically even as we look at our tradition. So let us begin from the beginning. Who are Yajuj and Majuj? And what does the Quran and Sunnah say about them? The issue of Yajuj and Majuj is something that doesn't just occur in the hadith. It is explicit in the Quran. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Yajuj and Majuj in the Quran. Therefore, it is pretty clear that this is not something that you can say, oh, it's only found in one hadith. No, it is found in many a hadith, but even more importantly, it is found in the Quran itself. Where in the Quran? In two specific verses, only two. Only twice in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Yajuj and Majuj. The first of them is Surah Al-Kahf. And at the very end of Surah Al-Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the issue of Dhul Qarnayn, Jazakallah khair. The story of Dhul Qarnayn. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. Now, this is an entire lecture and an entire tafsir altogether. I do not have time to go into Dhul Qarnayn and the tafsir of Surah Kahf, even though it's very juicy, maybe another time. What we do know, Dhul Qarnayn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we gave him power in this world, and we allowed him a path everywhere. And he went to the easternmost, he went to the westernmost. There are stories mentioned in the Quran about Dhul Qarnayn. He was a just king. He thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He found people of all different types and persuasions. And then the final one that is mentioned, the final group of people, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ بَيْنَ السَّدَّيْنِ. When he came to essentially a valley, there's two mountain slopes coming here. وَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمَا قَوْمًا. He found a group of people. لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ قَوْلًا. They did not understand Dhul Qarnayn. Dhul Qarnayn did not understand them. In other words, this was a civilization that had no middle ground. In the good old days, once upon a time, before Google Translate, how did people translate from one another? There were people, intermediaries, who had traveled to both lands. Inevitably, you would find somebody who spoke Latin and Arabic, who spoke, this language and that language. You would find somebody. Dhul Qarnayn went to such a faraway land that the language of those people and the language of Dhul Qarnayn had no middle ground. So Allah is mentioning this is a far-flung civilization from where Dhul Qarnayn came from. So how then did they communicate when there is no language? They communicated with signs. When you're in a tourist in a different land, in a strange land, and you have no language whatsoever, you are forced to communicate with your hands. And mashallah, you can communicate so much with your hands, right? When you really have to, you can figure things out. So they are communicating with their symbols, with their gestures. And so they say that قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. This is the first mention of Yajuj and Majuj. They say this group of people, Yajuj and Majuj, they are wreaking havoc in this world. So Dhul Qarnayn, you are a mighty king, you are a powerful person, we will give you something. We will give you money, whatever is the symbol for money, and you build a wall. You protect us from those people. O Dhul Qarnayn, you are clearly a man of intellect and power, a mighty king. You have a civilization we do not have. You have strength we do not have. So we want you to do something to protect us. So Dhul Qarnayn has gone to the furthermost regions of the world, and there is a group of people even beyond that region. This is called Yajuj and Majuj. And this civilization is saying, we want protection, we'll pay you to build this barrier between us and them. So Dhul Qarnayn says, I don't need your money. ما مكنني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة. I don't need your money. I have plenty. What are you going to give me? Rather, I understand these people are evil. So Dhul Qarnayn sympathized with this other nation against Yajuj and Majuj. So Dhul Qarnayn said, okay, you know, these people are really bad, Yajuj and Majuj, I'll help you. What do I need from you? فَأَعِينُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدَمًا. I need your strength. I need manual power. I know what to do. I have the brains for it, but I need the bronze. I need the people. So Allah Azza wa Jal then mentions that they took big bellows of furnace and iron and copper, and they made a special type of barrier, and they put these people, they used these bellows of the furnaces on a massive scale, and they made an iron barrier that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, فَمَا اسْطَاعُوا أَنْ يَظْهَرُوهُ وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا. Neither could they climb over the wall, nor could they come underneath it, nor could they bore a hole between it. So it is an effective barrier. قال هذا رحمة من ربي. Dhul Qarnayn, when he saw what he had done, he said, this is from Allah. Allah has blessed me. Allah has given me this. It's not from me. It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then either Dhul Qarnayn or Allah is speaking. We don't know which one. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي. Most likely it is Dhul Qarnayn or an angel or somebody is saying this. But this wall is temporary. When the command of Allah comes, then this wall will be of no use. It will be gone. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ. And on that day, these groups will be like waves, just intermixing amongst one another, and the trumpet will be blown. So this is the first mention of Dhul Qarnayn, and it deals with the wall, the first mention of Yajuj and Majuj, and it deals with the wall that was built by Dhul Qarnayn. The next mention of Yajuj and Majuj is Surah Al-Anbiya, verses 92 to 97. Surah Al-Anbiya, verses 92 to 97, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran regarding Judgment Day, حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. Until finally, Yajuj and Majuj will be allowed out. فُتِحَتْ. They will be allowed out, and they are going to be pouring down from every single, slope, from every mountain. They're going to be coming. وَاقْتَرَبَ الْوَعْدُ الْحَقِّ. And judgment will now be asunder, will now be well close. So Yajuj and Majuj are right before Judgment Day. This is pretty clear in the Quran. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي in Surah Al-Kahf. Over here, وَاقْتَرَبَ الْوَعْدُ الْحَقُّ. And the inevitable hour is coming. So twice in the Quran, Allah mentions Yajuj and Majuj, both of them linking it directly to Judgment Day, right before Judgment Day. Now, by the way, who is Dhul Qarnayn? Dhul Qarnayn is an enigmatic figure, and some of our medieval commentators, and then especially the most famous translator of the Quran of the previous century, Abdullah Yusuf Ali, whose impact in the translation was well known. All of us who grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we know Abdullah Yusuf Ali's translation as being the one that had the most impact, even though, long story, but it wasn't very accurate. Number one. Number two, can you believe, this is completely tangent, Abdullah Yusuf Ali couldn't speak Arabic properly. There's another point, he plagiarized it, but that's a whole different story, not related to our topic here. Nonetheless, his translation went viral, and in his translation and his commentary, he mentions that Dhul Qarnayn is, who does he mention? Alexander. All of you know this, okay? He mentioned Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander the Great. And it kind of spread amongst the masses, and this is what happens, subhanAllah, how thoughts spread, even if they're incorrect. And so many people thought Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander, but this is really almost 100% wrong, for many reasons. Most obviously is that we know a lot about Alexander the Great. We know a lot about him. And he was not a believer in Allah, he was a pagan. He worshipped the idols. And Allah praises Dhul Qarnayn as being a worshipper. And Allah praises Dhul Qarnayn as being a righteous person. And Allah never praises paganism. And Allah never praises someone in this manner. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Dhul Qarnayn says, قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. So Alexander really almost impossible. Some modern commentators have said that it is the Persian King Cyrus, who ruled from around 600 to 530 BC. So we're talking about 2,600 years ago, the Persian King Cyrus. And Cyrus, they say he's a candidate because he ruled over perhaps the largest empire the world has ever seen, or maybe the second or third largest. You know, there have been these massive empires. Alexander the Great probably did rule over the most largest empire, but temporarily. The Muslims, by the way, ruled over the largest for the longest period of time. But that's a different thing. Alexander, for a period of time, had more, but it fizzled out with his death. The benefit or the beauty of Islam is that wherever the Muslims went, Islam remained, and Islam and the Muslim civilization was the largest, but it wasn't unified as solid, if you like, as it was under Alexander. So they say Cyrus. But firstly, there are a number of things that don't match up, and secondly, once again, Cyrus was a clear-cut pagan. There is a third theory that I personally am very sympathetic to. But these are just theories in the end of the day. If you don't like it or you like it, it doesn't matter. It's just my opinion or the opinion of some modern scholars. If Dhul Qarnayn were a historic figure, what do I mean by historic? I mean somebody whom we know. Because it is always possible that Dhul Qarnayn is pre-history, pre-recorded history, because recorded history begins around 4,000 years ago. Before that, we don't really have records. Before that, it's just unknown. It's a big black box. Perhaps Dhul Qarnayn is of that time frame. Allah knows. As for recorded history, it goes back around 4,000, roughly 4,000 years or a bit more than that. And we know pretty much all of the massive empires and the great kings of that time frame. If Dhul Qarnayn was one of the kings of this era, then we should know about him in terms of recorded history. Humanity would have known of these types of great kings who have conquered large swaths of the earth. So another candidate that I am personally very sympathetic to is the Persian Emperor Darius, who ruled 550 to 486 BC. And Darius ruled over most of the known world at that time, most of what we now call Asia Minor, the Caucasus, the Balkans, Central Asia, even Egypt, North Africa. He had a massive empire, and he himself traveled to the furthest east and the furthest west. And he led expeditions in his entire kingdom. And he fought against the Egyptians, he fought against the Chinese, he fought against, or the people of that region, call them what you will, but he fought against all of these people. And what is interesting about Darius, unlike Cyrus and definitely unlike Alexander, Darius was a monotheist. In contrast to the people before him and after him, we know from the books of history that Darius was an ardent monotheist. He was a strict believer in one God. He was beloved to his people. He had the reputation of being a just king. And we have records of Darius. We have inscriptions to this day of Darius in which he is saying, I am the king, Darius and whatnot, whom God has bestowed power to. In other words, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. Literally, God has blessed me with this power. It is very rare to find an ancient king who basically, Fir'aun said, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. Right? It is very rare to find an ancient king who is saying, look, I am a king, but the one above is the one who made me the king. He's the one who gave this to me. So, and by the way, there's also a very enigmatic inscription of Darius in which he is depicted as having two horns as well. So that kind of adds a little bit of a spice, to the whole mix there, that Darius seems to be a likely candidate, and he was an ardent believer. Now, some can say, for those of you who know your history, but Darius was a Zoroastrian. And we say, well, there was no Islam per se at this point in time. We're talking 2,000 years ago. And Darius believed in the one supreme God that they called Ahura Mazda. And that was their name for them, but it was one God that they believed in. So Allah knows best. We are not 100% sure in any case. And it is also possible that Dhul Qarnayn could be somebody in recorded history whom we don't know. But that seems a bit difficult to swallow for someone like me. But those of you who wish to, they can do that. But you have two main options in my opinion. Either it's one of these historic figures or it's pre-recorded history. But then the issue comes again to make the issue more enigmatic. Generally speaking, Quranic history is recorded history. Only Nuh and some are history. Otherwise, Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq, the rest of them, they're basically in the time frame that most civilization is known. So Allah Ta'ala knows best. In any case, Dhul Qarnayn is called Dhul Qarnayn according to our tradition, either because he had 2 streaks of white hair, or because he wore a helmet with 2 horns, and Darius is depicted as 2 horns, or because he went to the east and the west. So the Qarn here is east and west, so the owner of the east and the west. So this is the notion of Dhul Qarnayn. Now, we're going to get to Yajuj and Majuj. Before I talk about my own understandings and whatnot, let's see what else is mentioned. So this is Yajuj and Majuj in the Quran. We don't have much about them other than they seem to be a race of savages. They seem to be a race that is barbaric, killing, looting, plundering. And Dhul Qarnayn, who has never met them, is sympathetic that these people are bad. He just wants to build a wall to protect these strangers from Dhul Qarnayn. So, what does the ahadith say? The ahadith are numerous. In fact, in the 6 books of hadith, there are around a dozen narrations of Yajuj and Majuj. So it's not a small amount. There are around a dozen, Bukhari and Muslim have around 6 or 7. So it is mentioned in the most authentic books, Yajuj and Majuj. The concept of Yajuj and Majuj is found in our tradition. And of these ahadith, is the hadith in Sahih Muslim where our Prophet ﷺ said 10 are the major signs of Judgment Day, and he mentions Ad-Dukhan, Ad-Dajjal, Ad-Dabba, the rising of the sun in the west, the descent of Isa ibn Maryam, and Yajuj and Majuj. So number 6 on this list mentions Yajuj and Majuj. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim. So he mentions Yajuj and Majuj as being one of the 10 major signs. In another hadith, Sahih Bukhari, this is the Bukhari hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, actually the Muttafaq Ali, Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said that he quoted the verse in the Quran that يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم إن زلزلة الساعة شيء عظيم يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها وترى الناس سكارى وما هم بسكارى ولكن عذاب الله شديد. This is the beginning of Surah Hajj, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in it that this is Judgment Day, that O mankind, fear your Lord. For indeed the earthquake of Judgment Day is something to be terrified. On that day you will see people, the mother will neglect her breastfeeding child, and people will walk around as if they are drunk, but they are not drunk, but the punishment of Allah is severe. And the Prophet ﷺ quoted this ayah, and then he said that when will this happen? When will people be so terrified? When Allah will announce to the angels or to Adam that, O Adam, take the people of Jahannam to Jahannam. And so from every 1,999 will go to Jahannam. The Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, with those odds, how can we be safe? If every 1,999 are going to go to Jahannam, how can we be safe? What is the statistical chance of us winning? And so the Prophet ﷺ said, I give you good news. For every one of you, there will be 1,000 of Yajuj and Majuj. So this hadith, which is in Bukhari, is saying the quantity of Yajuj and Majuj is astronomical, beyond what we can even comprehend. Hadith in Sahih in Musnad Imam Ahmad, that the Prophet ﷺ said that you complain that there is no enemy. Some of the younger Sahaba are wanting to have a fight. You're complaining we're not fighting, but you shall continue fighting. There will always be qital once the fitna begins. That happened when the time of Uthman radiallahu anh. There will always be fighting until Yajuj and Majuj come. So hadith is explicit that fighting will continue until Yajuj and Majuj, and then the Prophet ﷺ described them. They shall have faces that are flat, they shall have eyes that are narrow, they shall have hair that is yellowish, and they shall descend from every single plane. Now, important to note, you shall fight until Yajuj and Majuj. He didn't say you will fight Yajuj and Majuj. We will learn we will not fight Yajuj and Majuj. Yajuj and Majuj are not fightable. Is that a correct verb? Is that a correct noun? Masdar? They are not capable to be fought. Let us be more precise and pedantic. You cannot fight Yajuj and Majuj. we will not be fighting Yajuj and Majuj. Fighting will continue until Yajuj and Majuj. Which also means what? After Yajuj and Majuj, no fighting. So Yajuj and Majuj is the final frontier, after which there will be no fitan. There will be no fitan after Yajuj and Majuj. This also shows that Yajuj and Majuj will be of the very, very, very last fitan to take place, because after Yajuj and Majuj there will be no more major fitan for the Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ said as well, another hadith. So right now, what am I doing? I'm narrating to you Quran and Sunnah. I'm narrating to you our sources. Then we will pause and go back and see what we can derive from those sources. Okay, because we need to really think deeply. And in all likelihood, we will have to do a part 2 for Yajuj and Majuj, because there's a lot of material to digest and discuss. Our Prophet ﷺ said, hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, I swear by him in whose hands is my soul, you shall continue to perform Hajj and Umrah, and you will continue to cultivate and plant trees even after Yajuj and Majuj. This hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. So in Sahih Bukhari we learn another interesting fact. Yajuj and Majuj is not the end of the Ummah. What is the purpose of this hadith? O Ummah, you will not be destroyed. O Muslims, you are going to be here, don't worry. No external enemy will eliminate you. This is a prediction, and it has been true throughout all of history, and it will continue to be true. Our Prophet ﷺ made 3 du'as to Allah, and he said, Allah gave me 2 of them, and he denied me 1. Remember this? We went over it a few weeks ago. The second one was, O Allah, do not allow my ummah to be destroyed by an external enemy. And Allah said, I've given it to you. Never will an external enemy decimate and eliminate the ummah, even if they eliminate parts of the ummah. The whole ummah will never be gotten rid of by an external enemy. So the Prophet ﷺ is giving good tidings. You're worried about the Quraysh, you're worried about this and that, don't worry. I am telling you, I swear by Allah, not only will you survive, you will do Hajj and Umrah. You'll retain your religion. And you will cultivate, you'll retain your dunya. Even after Yajuj and Majuj. So, even Yajuj and Majuj are not the end of Muslims. There shall be Umrah and Hajj, and there shall be cultivation and planting even after Yajuj and Majuj. So this is another interesting thing that we derive. In another hadith, muttafaq alayh, Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ entered in upon some of our mothers, some of his wives, and he was agitated, he was concerned, he was worried. And he put his finger and his thumb together in a circle. He put his finger and his thumb in a circle. And he said that, لا إله إلا الله ويل للعرب من شر قد اقترب. لا إله إلا الله ويل للعرب من شر قد اقترب. La ilaha illallah, woe to the Arabs. And this means Muslims, because at that time all the Muslims were Arabs. Woe to the Muslims, woe to the Arabs from an evil that has now come very close. What is this evil? Salama asked, what is this evil? He said, today a hole of this size, hence the ishara, has been opened up from the wall of Yajuj and Majuj. Now this hadith is muttafaq alayh, the highest level of authenticity for us. Today, a hole of this size has been opened up from the wall of Yajuj and Majuj. Salama said, Ya Rasulullah, anuhlaku wa fina salihun? Will we be destroyed and there's still righteous people amongst us? Will piety not save us? And our Prophet ﷺ said, Na'am, إِذَا كَثُرَ الْخَبَثِ. Yes, even if there's still pious people, but if filth is prevalent everywhere, the piety of some individuals will not protect you. It might protect them on Judgment Day. It might protect them. In fact, it will protect them on Judgment Day. But societies will not be protected when corruption and evil and fitna and licentiousness and nudity and fahisha is rampant everywhere. The piety of a few folks will not prevent the adhab of Allah from coming. Nasalullah salama wal afiyah. If you understand this hadith, then you should make sure you are at least pious. So this hadith tells us that Yajuj and Majuj's wall has a hole this size in the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hadith in Tirmidhi, in which Abu Huraira narrates that every single day Yajuj and Majuj try to dig out. And every day they are met with an angel. And the angel tells them, enough for today, go back. And so they go back until finally, on the final day, the angel mentions the famous phrase, Insha'Allah, come back. And the next day when they come back, so the narration is very long, it basically means every day they come back and they find all of the work that they have done goes back to nothing. They have to start from the beginning again. Until the last day when they find they come back, the work of yesterday is still there. They still are carved in. So now they start from where they left off and they break through. So this is a hadith that mentions that Yajuj and Majuj are carving every day, and that every single day they get to a place until the angel turns them back. In another hadith in Sahih Muslim, we learn that after the Dajjal is killed, Isa will congratulate his followers and give consolation to his followers. And within that time frame, or a very short time frame, Allah will inspire Isa that a new group has come, Ibadan li. Creations of mine have come, no one can fight them. No one can fight them. So take my servants and go to Jabal Tur, go to Mount Tur and protect them over there. Then Allah will send Yajuj and Majuj out, and so Isa and the Muslims will not see them. They will be protected in the caves of Turi Sayna somewhere. Wherever Musa was or in that region, there will be protected over there. Now, in this hadith, we learn that Yajuj and Majuj are so dangerous, so evil, that Allah Himself says, nobody can fight them. Interestingly enough, this army has just fought the Dajjal. This army has just fought the Dajjal, and they have won over the Dajjal. And they are told, you cannot fight Yajuj and Majuj. In fact, it is so bad that Allah protects them even from seeing Yajuj and Majuj. They just flee by the command of Allah before Yajuj and Majuj come. They find protection in the caves that Allah tells them to find protection in before Yajuj and Majuj come, and they remain in those caves. For how long? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And in fact, in one narration, it mentions that Isa and his followers, they will seek refuge in a cave for so long that what is the term I'm looking for? The head of a ram, the head of a goat, the head of a ram, a dead ram, will be more precious to them than 100 gold dinars. Now the head of a ram is almost useless. It has no meat. It has nothing you can benefit from. You throw it to the side. But they will be in the cave for so long that that head will be more precious to them than 100 gold coins. A fortune. They have nothing to eat and drink until finally, when they notice whatever they notice, we don't know, the hadith doesn't mention, maybe there's quiet, maybe there's something, they will say, who can go and volunteer and see what is going on outside the cave? So a man will volunteer. He will be considered the best of them, and he will resign himself to die the death of a shaheed. He's given up that he's going to die the death of a shaheed, and he will come out only to see that the world is full of corpses of Yajuj and Majuj. The world is full of corpses of Yajuj and Majuj. And then he will call out the people, and they will come out and they will see not a single handspan of the earth except that it is piled with Yajuj and Majuj, and the world will stench. There will be a stench that they cannot bear from Yajuj and Majuj's body. So they will desperately plead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this. And Allah Azza wa Jal will send a rain that will cleanse the earth, a cleansing that it has never had before. Deep cleansing from Allah Azza wa Jal. In another narration, Allah will bring